Okay, dear Philip, it's a great honor to me, really, welcome you to this talk show as a globally recognized PMO influencer. You worked more than 40 years for very large companies like PSA or Safran, Airbus, and also Michelin. And your main focus area is PMO and transformation. But just please tell me, what is the PMO to you as a person?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, Reinhard, for accepting to be with me on this interview. It's very nice. What's a PMO for me? It's a great question. In the world I've lived in, frankly, the PMO had so many different images, so many different roles that sometimes it's very difficult to define. If I had only one sentence I would like to share, to me, the PMO is a kind of team or individual whose purpose is to make a project management team, sponsor, leader, and so on shine. I mean, the PMO for me is something project managers, project teams, and so on need to help them, to support them, and to make what they do, whatever they do, portfolio, program, and so on, successful. So it's very vast, of course. It's a very large definition. But you make the others shine. Okay, like in a Formula One team, you have a pilot somewhere, and the team is preparing everything for the race to be won.
So it's mainly, as you say, a support function for an organization, for teams, for sponsors, for people. I guess there are many different forms of the PMO, right? But did you experience an enterprise PMO or a very strategic level PMO? And what is that enterprise PMO doing?
Well, it's a very important question. At Michelin, for example, or in two of the aerospace businesses I've been working with, I had a chance to either create or be an enterprise PMO. My purpose was to increase the project management maturity within the company. And at the end, to increase our, let's say, success rate in everything we did in terms of portfolio management or program management and so on. As you know, succeeding in projects is very difficult. And by the way, the definition of success is very different too. Our goal is to make sure that the company can develop and make sure that the investments they put in projects, in new ventures and so on, have as much success as possible. So the role of a PMO, by doing this, is very close to the executive committee. It's very close to every other PMO within the company. For example, the functional PMOs in information systems, manufacturing, and so on. It's very close to the hundreds of projects we have in global companies. And when we are lucky, we are also very close to a strategy, because the strategy is maybe the top of something which is then declined in terms of portfolios and projects and investments and so on. So the EPMO has, I would say, a wonderful opportunity to also participate to the strategy definition and execution. Maybe more in the execution part, of course, because executing a strategy requires to succeed in the portfolio management and the project management, especially the strategic initiatives.
About that a bit later also too. But now in a very large company, how many PMOs are there? Because I can guess also in my world, a large company like an automotive manufacturer is having 20, 30 PMOs in all different areas. What is your experience in that?
Well, without giving secrets, we had something, or I had something like 35 official PMOs in this network when I was working at Michelin. Michelin is a wonderful company with 120,000 people all around the world. And if you look at every PMO, big and small, but really PMO, not POs, it's several tens. And together they managed, as far as I've seen, because of course you don't see all of the projects which are running in a company, but it's in the range of several thousand projects and several hundred projects, portfolios, sorry, managed by these PMOs. It's huge.
Okay, so it then is deployed to a business unit or a country organization or let's say a product-specific area. Okay. But, I often get the question, how many people are in ePMO, an enterprise PMO, and how many people typically or on average are on an operational, let's say, normal PMO? What would you say?
I'd say that we are using. I knew very well how many project or portfolio managers we had. However, the organizations I've worked with, and what I love to do, is to create communities of people serving certain purposes or certain activities. Why? Every time I've seen someone, for example, a big project manager asking for a PMO, the first question was from his boss or the sponsor, how much is it going to cost? How many people do you want? And so on.
Exactly.
So what I'm using to do, frankly, is to create a PMO based on decentralized people with a certain level of expertise, a certain level of time availability, of experience, and so on, and to create those communities of people serving a certain and specific purpose, which is, for example, to develop the ePMO. The ePMO I was managing or running, I should not say managing, by the way. It was more animating. The ePMO was made of maybe we were 15 to 20 individuals from research and development, marketing and sales, business units, and so on. We had an agenda. We had a clear action plan. We had a target to achieve. We had things to do. But nobody knew we were existing officially. Only the executive committee was gently accepting that this community work and be influential.
Okay.
But in the headcount, nobody knew.
I see more and more PMOs that are also virtual PMOs. So it means that you have people attached that are part-time working with the team of the PMO, but they have, on the other hand, other functions that they perform, let's say ordinary project management functions and so on. And that helps also to spread the idea of the PMO globally, so that you have people in China and maybe in the US working for a PMO which is in Europe. And that is sometimes called virtual PMO. Would you agree that this is a solution?
Yes. Frankly, I feel very comfortable with this. For example, the ePMO I was animating was capable to find people expert, for example, in lean startup, in design thinking, in the biggest waterfall methodologies we can imagine, in every kind of things, increasing our agile mindset and so on. But somewhere in China, somewhere in the US, more waterfall, by the way, many agile people were in Europe, and so on. So we could capitalize on the best experts and experienced people without increasing the cost of the team size and so on of any big official formalized ePMO. And I love the idea of being virtual. However, we still need to have a career management behind this. We still need to have a reward system because people at the end commit themselves to deliver services, to help people, to mentor others, and so on. So it needs to be recognized. So it's a mix of virtual organization and also formal processes to make everything fit together.
So you're saying stability on the one hand with flexibility on the other.
Absolutely.
So that's the kind of a balance that you need. And that,
yes.
I found interesting you now for the second time use the word animated. Some people would say that sounds not really professional or serious. They would love more the word I managed or I was leader of or head of. Why did you use that term of animation?
Interesting, important question. Everyone speaks of leadership today. I don't feel too much comfortable with this. I feel comfortable with what I call human dynamics. Because at the end, teams to succeed need much more than leadership. It's a question of how I understand your culture, you understand mine, how I understand the way you work, your processes and so on, and vice versa, your history. Sometimes it even goes to geopolitical things. We need to understand today, for example, when we work with the US and China, how they deal together to make sure that Chinese people and American people in the same team get along together, and so on and so on. So that's the first thing. The second one is, since I love the notion of virtual teams, the fact of managing is difficult. For example, I'm very often, both in the aerospace business and at Michelin or in automotive industries, I've worked at PSA. People tend to say that your power depends on the number of people you have in your team. I think it's obsolete. I don't like this at all. The power of a PMO is more based, in my mind today, on the influence he and his team members or community members are able to develop. And influence, to me, horizontal influence, vertical influence, and so on, are the key success factors in our very complex world, where hierarchy has another role, another purpose, in fact.
That sounds like a very political answer, Philip. But I like it because it means you're taking the people serious. You do not want to be superior because a PMO is always, in my mind, a support function. And you put the people in the middle of that PMO setting and you say you have some influence, you facilitate, you keep the stakeholders engaged from the top management down to the trenches. I think that's a more psychological or sociology task that you're doing. Is that right?
It's right. At the same time, you are doing very hard things like managing a planning, delivering results and so on. But what I mean is that today, even in my mind, a top executive in a large company is much more working by influence, but by strict orders, like we did maybe 50 years ago. That's what I mean. Even project leaders, for example, when I look at the major programs I've seen or run myself, your influence is number one. You have a very small authority on budgets and so on. What you need to do, or what I needed to do, is to make sure that leaders or managers somewhere in business units and so on agreed to spend resources, to put people in place, to spend money, to achieve together a certain goal.
Sounds great, yeah. Now, you have published a book, a very nice and very insightful book. In one of the chapters, there's a headline. It's called "PMOs are at the heart of project success." Can you elaborate a bit on what you mean by that?
Yes. I come from industries of different types. Let's say the aerospace business was like the space business, was very much organized by program and by project. So we had very strong program managers, because when we have to deliver a satellite, frankly, it has to be delivered on time. If you miss the deadline, you miss the launch window, and it's really awfully costly. But also I came from other firms where most of the project managers came from the management side. So all of a sudden, a big project happens, and a typical manager having some time available or having just, let's say, the reputation to be able to manage projects came on board and became the program of a project manager. What I believe is that it's a weakness, because it's really a métier. I don't know if métier is an English word. Managing a project is not something you can invent tomorrow morning. It requires knowledge, technical, business, soft skills, and so on. It also requires experience. And we don't transform a typical manager into a typical project or program manager easily. While PMOs, if we work well by developing the people and so on, serving this role, can be the foundation of, let's say, a professional project management approach, serving both the team and the project manager, and at the end, the sponsors and stakeholders. That's why I put this in my book. I've seen so many leaders, sponsors, not understanding what project management is about. that I really wanted to create something to promote the PMO role and make sure that without PMO, sometimes failure is at the end of the path. Frankly. And if I can still take 2 minutes, there's something else. In most industrial companies I've been working with, operations are number one. So we see lots of people working on operational excellence, developing lean, whatever you want, and so on. I've not seen the same level of dedication on project, except in a few cases. As a result, since projects are really the fundamental things to succeed in when you want to execute your strategy, I'm just very sad to see how little resources many sponsors or executives put on project management because they fail to give them a chance to succeed in their strategy. While the operations, of course, are absolutely excellent.
Okay. I'd like to ask a personal question. So to you, 40 years of experience in industry, and especially with PMOs. So could I rephrase the question? PMOs are at the heart of Philips' success?
No, it was even the opposite.
It was the opposite.
No, I want to be frank. To tell the truth, I've more often been a strategy management guy or a program manager or more often a portfolio manager. But what happened is that when I joined Michelin 20 years ago, something like that, or a little less, I've been asked at the beginning to be a PMO. And the first thing my first boss told me is that he was expecting me to prepare coffee and pastries before his steering committees. Mm-hmm. So I left after 3 months. I want to be frank.
Sure.
And this day I understood that in some companies, PMOs were not recognized enough and rewarded enough. It was a good lesson for me. And that's why I changed my role and became, let's say, I wanted to champion the PMO role, which made maybe 50% of my career. And even the last experience I had been helping my boss manage a $300 million or euro project during 3 or 4 years. We get along very well. We were like a couple, in fact, a couple. He's a great leader. He gave me the name of PMO and I don't care. And in fact, we built this program together. And at the end, the ePMO was just a side result of what we did together. But I was willing to develop this role. And I still believe that PMOs are a key success factor today and will be in the next 10 years.
Here in Germany, we did 5 years back a very large survey on PMOs. And one of the questions was addressing how satisfied top managers are with the PMO. And on the other hand, also how satisfied the PMs, the project managers, are with the PMO. And frankly, I was a bit surprised because the top managers were more satisfied with the PMO than the PMs. So does that mean that the PMO is rather a policeman, so serving the top managers more than being a good Samaritan for the PMs to support them in what they need? What is your experience?
Interesting. My experience here is diverse. For example, during my last 2 or 3 years with Michelin, the chairman, the CEO, required that I give him every month the list of the 10 biggest issues he should solve or help to solve in the biggest project he had. And frankly, I didn't want to do this. I wanted each business sponsor or project sponsor or program sponsor to be responsible and accountable for their results. I was only here to provide data to help these guys and never wanted to myself show this. This experience has shown that maybe sometimes basically the sponsor, the project sponsor, is accountable for the benefits, and maybe not the PMOs, which to me is an issue. With the best bosses I've had, both in aerospace and at Michelin, and there are great bosses there, I've been very lucky, we had the same targets. I was co-accountable for the achievement of the results, point number one. So as a PMO, I was totally engaged. I had my skin in the game when we did something. Secondly, my experience is also showing that it's very difficult to evaluate a PM on the benefits. Why? Because the project has normally, most of the time, a finite duration, 1, 2, 5, 10 years sometimes, and the benefits only arrive later. So it's difficult to assign or to locate typical benefits to a specific PM or more. It creates difficulties. If I look, for example, at the Sydney Opera House, it was supposed to be a failure at the beginning. The architect had to resign and so on. But today, this Opera House is a wonderful, emblematic thing. And millions of tourists are visiting it. If I look at the Boeing 737 MAX 8 failure, I'm sure that the project has been almost a success for a long time because they wanted to be competitive with the Airbus Neo aircraft. But after the two very terrible crashes they had, it's a total failure. So the question is, how do we evaluate now the success of both the project managers or the PMOs helping them? Difficult.
I understand your answer, but on the other hand, in the survey, and later we interviewed people also, they said it is especially the task of the PMO to bring transparency into the portfolio. So they are looking for data, they're capturing data. And with that, they are seen on the side of the project manager to be, let's say, the more policemen. They expect, on the other hand, more support, so that the PMO helps them through training or coaching, providing them templates or insights, what's going on. Also, one argument of them is that they do not see the reports that a PMO creates and sends to the top management, so they get barely a feedback on all that. So that's what at least those people, it were more than 1,000 respondents, said. And I think that's very critical for the long-term or longevity of PMO, to take that in consideration, right?
I see. If I can give or share my experience with my fellow PMOs, one, never produce a report for anyone else than your boss. He is the one responsible for saying the stakeholders and so on, we have issues, or we work well, we progress according to plan, and so on. That's really what I did. At the beginning, even at the steering committee level, they, let's say the steering committee members, have to stand up and say, Mr. CEO, I have an issue, that's what I'm going to do. The PMO is really behind this and does not forward any issue, any bad news, and so on, transversely. For example, one of the ways to solving solutions very upstream before tough steering committees and so on is to produce a report to whoever has something to do and let them solve the issue before the issue becomes critical and so on. But I understand why. Maybe because too many PMOs, I guess, are producing data and sending their data urbi et orbi with very bad influence after this. The other thing I can say is that to me, it's absolutely not to a PMO to be a policeman. The policeman is somebody who is making the order reign, not the PMO. The PMO is telling the driver, beware, you go too fast. But if there is a reward or a punishment to give, it's not to the PMO to do it. You don't have to be a policeman for me if you are a PMO.
Yeah, but sometimes top management wants the PMO to be policeman and enforce things. And it's very dangerous because that means that the PMO may lose ground in the organization. So they are not getting the real data. So then maybe projects making up data so that the PMO is satisfied having some data, but it's not the real picture anymore.
That's right. That's right. But again, how do you build trust with your fellow team members and PMOs and so on somewhere? By not doing anything which could make them hide the truth.
Absolutely.
The trust has to be built. I had, for example, in mind a very big and difficult program, an ERP program. And basically, the business case was planning to spend something like 10 of something. And everything goes well for 1, 2, 3 years until a friend of mine somewhere just in the middle of the organization, you see, said in a corridor in front of a coffee machine, very important, the coffee machines.
Yes.
Some of us believe it's not 10, it's 100. Wow, bad news. What do you do then? So a PMO knew that there was something he didn't see before, something which is not shown yet officially. So what I did is just let someone trusted know that there was an issue, someone of very high level in the organization. This someone made a very small search and said in 5 minutes, I trust you, we have a problem, and made himself the issue on the table, apparent. And as a result, yes, we had to multiply by 10 the level of resources if we wanted to succeed. You cannot do this if you are a policeman, because people just will hide the truth. And it's especially true in countries where it's more difficult to communicate. You don't want people to lose face and so on. Maybe you can do this in the US, even not, by the way. If we see the space shuttle problems and the Boeing problems, and we could have the same here in France, and it's still worse in Asia, we have to be very careful by being a policeman.
Okay.
That's my experience.
There's another big topic I experience right now, especially in this COVID period, that CEOs are asking what is the value add of a PMO? What is the success? What are the KPIs and the measures to really get grip of what a PMO is providing as a benefit to the organization? What would you say? What are the success measures of a PMO?
Well, first of all, to me, success is based on two things. It's based on performance, and it's based on network. And we see people who are having a great success, but a poor network, and they are not really successful. We see also the opposite. Poor performance, a good network, and at the end, people succeed. So I would say that the PMO has to find the right balance between both. Secondly, we already mentioned this. I love to have the same objective, the same goals, the same targets than my boss as being a PMO. So performance is really linked to the project or program or portfolio performance. And it's linked to the way people, stakeholders, say this guy is helping us or his team is helping us or not. It's very subjective, but it's important. Third, having been more often in the portfolio domain than project domain, what I can say is that the KPI number one is the degree of alignment of whatever you do, projects and so on, with the strategic objectives. It's a very difficult KPI to install because very often strategic objectives are unclear. I can say this, it's not always easy to have a clear strategy map from top executives, but they exist. They have a strategy.
How do the projects and programs that you do in a certain area contribute to the strategic objectives that you have?
Yes. And for this, we have several methods if you want to achieve this. For example, one, which was subjective also, was to put around the table a steering committee and to tell them, now you have a list of 150 projects, and please, ladies and gentlemen, select the top 10 you want to monitor at your level. I can tell you it takes time. It's a shock. Yeah. But at the end, they get with 10 projects. Then you know that you are working on the correct project. If you are a PMO not working on one of those 10, my advice is stop working and contribute to the top 10 during a crisis period. I mean,
we have made some experience in letting the board play. It's like in a casino. You have certain chips, so money, which is resources or financial funds that you have available for the next year or next 2 years. And now here are our proposal for projects. And now they can put their money on certain projects. And at the end, and that this is more a play, a game, how they select and do the prioritization. Because going through an Excel spreadsheet is sometimes a bit difficult for them. And doing it from gaming helps them really also to have fun in doing the selection. And they end up really in very serious debates about what is now really important. And often that brings something new to the strategy because they say, oh, we just discovered that something is more important than the other. And we need to fix that in our strategy.
Excellent. I love this. That's what I did. And it's working very well because you're right. Using the formal ranking methods, we all know 2 or 3 of them. We put every project on the same line, plus or minus 1%. So there is no way of selecting. However, executives are very clever. I always have very clever people, and together in the same room, they will sort out. They will decide and select what's important for them. Absolutely.
Okay, I saw some other KPIs for PMOs in very large organizations. One is looking at the maturity of the organization. So, so a PMO is measured whether it can increase or improve the maturity in project management throughout the whole organization. The other one is also, and I found that an interesting one is about innovation. Does the PMO encourage or foster innovation by also maybe feedback, lessons learned from projects into the organization and helping them to develop? What do you think about such kind of KPIs?
I would agree. I would agree. They are interesting KPIs. It's not always easy to measure. But for example, the level of training you deliver, the level of maybe certification sometimes, it's excellent. The way you deploy new methodologies, again, like lean startup or design thinking also, can be, let's say, an operational KPI, something showing that something is happening. What's difficult is to find KPIs based on results or benefits. But again, I fully agree with your examples. They're excellent.
Okay. Philip, I think 4 years ago, I was in Finland. I was invited on a big conference of the Finnish Project Management Association. And the topic was PMOs, 3 PMOs, they called it. And I was asked to have a thought-provoking theme. And I said, okay, for me, a PMO has a life cycle. So there's a beginning, and it's very interesting and exciting and so on, but there's also an end to the PMO. And I elaborated on that idea, and the people were really frustrated. There was, let's say, an upheaval during the conference because they say, how can you tell us as PMO heads that there's an end to the PMO? I said, yes. You may prolong it, you may try to fight against it, but at a certain point, there's an end of a PMO. My expression was, if the PMO is successful, improving the maturity and so on, then it better should close down, because then the line organization is capable or alone capable of doing all this. Would you agree to that idea, or what is your opinion on that?
Well, Reinhard, I totally agree. Totally. I had a wonderful boss during many years when I was working in the aerospace business. When he left, he was hiring me in his new company and so on. He was a CEO or COO. Every time he signed with me or I signed with him a contract, hiring contract, it was stipulated very clearly that my job would be suppressed in case of success. Very clear. And I totally agree. If a PMO succeeds enough, wherever he is or he or she is, the line must take over. Period. The only place where sometimes the PMO can have a very long life, it's in the domain of portfolio management, maybe. Because anyway, an information system team or a strategy has a portfolio which is going to last several years. But basically, no PMO should remain too long a PMO. The other thing is that I still believe that if you stay too long in the same function with the same team and so on, it's very bad for everyone. Bad for the team, bad for the project. I do believe that people have a career, that they need to experience different situations and so on. So on my side, I really do not like the infinite duration in anything we do. Never.
Yes. I agree. And most of them in that conference, by the way, were more doing that the operational support of projects. They were not really involved in the strategic, in the portfolio selection, and also the strategic level of this work. And that corresponds a bit to what we also found out in Germany in that survey, that unfortunately PMOs are not really involved in developing strategy and strategic planning, in that decision making. And my question to you is, why not? Are PMOs not accepted on that strategic level, or the wrong people? What is the problem?
See, it's an interesting question too. First of all, I would say that project management or PMO or whatever, it's like a journey. It's like a career which is going to develop over the years based on the experiences you have and the different failures and different successes you have and so on. Point number one. So, of course, everyone at the age of 20 would like to be a strategic PMO or would like to be an executive in a global company. No, life is made of growth. It's like a tree or plants in your garden. We need to grow, to learn, and so on. Point number one. The second one is that, and that's something I'm experiencing very often now as a consultant, not everyone likes or is able of strategic thinking, frankly. I'm sure that everyone at its level or her level is able of strategy. I have a strategy with my family, with my holidays and so on. But it's not going to make you a strategic thinker able to participate or to develop the strategy of your company. So here also, not everyone does this. So I would say PMO should wait, grow, learn, and to important strategic projects and strategic portfolios, and at the end, to the strategy itself. And I have a third comment, which is that today, as far as I've seen, and you are much more experienced than I am in this domain, but as far as I've seen, the different associations, organizations, and so on, which are providing training, are very focused on project management, whatever the method, the school of thoughts, and so on. But there are other associations which are promoting strategy management. Yeah. And I would recommend that before becoming or willing to be strategic or to execute a strategy, here also to be trained and maybe certified, like through Kaplan-Norton and so on, to strategy management. It's very important. I've spoken of this in my book very often, because strategy is something complex.
That's very true. We did some research on that also in Germany. That is, the education of people on a strategic level is typically seeing project management as something operational. We don't care. Some other people doing that. And if you look into the curricula of project managers, it's more concerned with managing a single project with methodology and so on.
Yes.
This is why, by the way, in the ITMA and the IPMA's individual competence baseline, in the new version, the version 4.0, we put a competence in which calls strategy, because it sees the project manager needs to understand that a project is embedded or linked to a strategy, and he needs to speak that language of strategy. and align the project to the strategy. And I think that's a very important skill that the people need. So on both sides, I think it needs more an alignment. That raises one very important point. I'm always asked, who's the best person to lead or to, what did you say, to run? And I said, the biggest mistake, in my opinion, is that we select the best project manager to animate the PMO. And I said, that's wrong. It should not be the best project manager. It should be, let's say, maybe the second best senior executive to do that, because he's more connected on the strategic level. He has maybe more the strategic thinking, and he should take care, let's say, like a chief project officer, take care for all the project work that's going on. Would you agree to that, or do you have an opinion?
Yes. First of all, I think it's different. The PMO is a support function. And as I said, a happy PMO makes the others shine. While the project manager, the sponsor, and so on are going to speak out, and they are going to get the benefits, and they are, it's a different function. A good PMO, as you say, at the end should disappear, not a good project manager. Secondly, in a company, in most of the companies I've seen, basically the strategy is elaborated at the executive committee level, plus the divisional vice presidents and so on. Where should a high-level PMO be? I would recommend, if this organization has a strategy management officer, for example, I would recommend that the PMO be attached to this function, because as you say, a strategy needs operational excellence, but also needs strategic initiatives which are going to move the organization towards its goal, its purpose. You see. And so there is a very close link between projects or strategic initiatives, which at the end are projects, but very complex, and project management. So I would make the PMO report to this position, not the finance one, for example.
Yes, I fully agree. It's not a number issue. But if I'm building on that answer, right now we see a lot of change and transformation going on in big companies. In automotive, especially now, the big structural change towards e-mobility and different mobility concepts, but also COVID-19 asked for a lot of change and transformation. So how do you see the role now of a PMO in this transformation scenario? Companies are changing, doing a lot of change initiatives. What do you think?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge, and well, first of all, because to me, a transformation is like taking a caterpillar and helping the caterpillar to become a butterfly.
Okay.
It is very far away from project management. We cannot create a project which is going to make a butterfly from a caterpillar. Caterpillar doesn't need it. It's embedded in its structure. So first of all, I'm careful with the word transformation. Sometimes I wonder if it's not a word which is used by consulting firms to increase their sales. Not everyone transforms. It's a very complex journey. So to answer your question, or to try to answer your question, I would suggest to find very specific talents to create a transformation management office. Okay. People, for example, yes, I would create a TMO and be very careful in the people I would put inside, or the talents. For example, I would select, the HR departments I've known during 40 years are using bell curves. I hate this. I hate this, okay. I would take an inverse bell curve. I would select in this TMO people who are on the far right and the far left of the inverse bell curve, who are people very independent very knowledgeable in complex systems, in human dynamics, how are people interfacing with each other and so on, and are able to detect within a system, within their organization, seen as a complex adaptive system, are able to detect circumstances and situations and potentials which can make a transformation successful. Because at the end, a transformation is the entire organization which is changing.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And we are very much involved here in Germany to help very large organizations to be agile. So it's scaling agile from the project level to the organizational level, which is global, is strategic. And some say, okay, we just put that transformation office into the enterprise PMO. And I strongly advise against that because they are totally different tasks. And as you rightly said, also different profiles of people that you need. So in the transformation, you need this more thinking outside of the box and thinking also from a more transformational change perspective. And this is typically not a skill that we see in a PMO right now. Maybe on the long run, there can be synergies between the two, but to just put transformation tasks into the PMO, it's an overstretch and dangerous for the PMO on the long run, right?
Totally agree. A good friend of mine said one day, if you want to pull a wagon or something, you need horses, and maybe strong horses, and maybe several of them. But if you want to collect nuts in a tree, you need squirrels. And don't try to train your horses to become squirrels and vice versa. You lose your time. And the second idea is that I would prefer, I'm doing this now with a client, it depends on what we mean by agile. If you see, we can be selective and create, for example, a specific team and specific organization, which is going to be very agile, like a startup and so on, and still continue to succeed in our business as usual. But making a business as usual agile, sometimes, I don't know what it means. And the second thing is that in terms of level, of scale, we don't do the same thing, in my mind, in my experience, at the bottom than at the top. I remember to have had colleagues one day who developed very excellent team agility in plants. And they asked me to train the executive committee to be agile and to do the same thing. Frankly, no. I cannot go to an executive committee and say, hey guys and ladies and so on, I'm going to teach you how to be empowered. No. People have to understand that you don't do the same thing at the bottom and at the top. You be selective and clever to transform something.
Thank you, Philip. I think time is nearly up. I have a very last question now, and I ask you to be very short and precise. So we have talked now about the PMO. So what is the future of the PMO? Now looking maybe 40 years ahead, or what do you think? What is the future of the PMO?
I am totally convinced, and I might be wrong, but I'm totally convinced that the PMO has a very bright future. First of all, because projects are a fact of life. The Babel Tower was already a project, and today we have projects and projects. Projects are becoming more and more complex, and we need the PMO to make the methods, the tools, the processes, the governance systems, and so on evolve to help us succeed in all the challenges we will have.
I think that's a very nice. That's a very nice finish to that talk. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best now on your journey advising the PMO. And I'm very excited talking with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was an honor for me to speak with you too. Thank you, Reinhard. Bye.
Au revoir.